What's going on? This is ASTROVILLE Season 2, Episode 10. We're finally here towards the end, and, it's been awesome. So, just wanted to put this out there. I've been absent. This episode and the last one are a little spread apart, and then the one before that. Life has been very busy. I'm back working, and if you didn't know, I was at home for a while with my children. My wife was working. Don't judge me. You don't know the story unless you know the story. But I wanted to be working. But I treasured the time that I got to have with my kids, and it was a very revealing life situation to myself, and I grew a lot from it. And I have plenty to grow still. But things have been pretty chaotic and busy. And so I apologize. We haven't been here every week. But it's all good because it's given time for things to happen and for me to grow with more new people. And I'm not sure that my guest would be sitting here if I just did those consecutive weeks. I think I would have ran out of weeks and she wouldn't be here right now. So I'm very excited and grateful that things played out the way they did. And also the reason why last week we weren't here, not exactly the reason, but I've been trying to put more stuff out there, and I'm working on it. But pray for my family. My grandfather just passed, and it's been tough on the family. But from my perspective, I'm grateful that he's in a better situation now than he's ever been. Mm-hmm. And he had such an impactful life, and he's left a legacy. And I've thought a lot about death since then, and we're only here for a short period. And it's a good idea that we live life as if we knew we would die tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so prayers for my family, thoughts too, if you want to. I don't know if that does anything, but definitely some prayers, and be grateful for the people that are in your life that are alive, because they won't be forever. Neither will you. So treat your children well, treat your parents well. And so let's see here. I've got a guest here. Her name is Emanuela. Mm-hmm. She goes by Emma, I think, mostly. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here.
I am too. I'm excited.
Me too. I was I've been wanting to have this conversation for a little while now, but I didn't really have somebody that I knew I could have this conversation with.
Yeah.
And you're quite the perfect person.
Praise God.
Yes. So thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Also, I have here Jason, my homie. He's actually running the switcher today, and he's been such a help with ASTROVILLE, even just in the conception, So I really appreciate you, bro. I think I've only had a mic and a camera on the switchboard like once in season 1. That was because I was thinking if we received questions when my wife and I were doing ours, that we could respond to them, and we did, and that was really cool.
Dope.
I'm not sure if we're going to do the questions thing today. Probably not. But I wanted to give him a mic and a camera because the last time he was on the switchboard, he wanted to punch in every now and then. And there was no way for him to do that. So I'm glad that he's plugged in now. So let's get right into it, Emma.
Let's do it.
All right. So I want to know your story. I don't know a whole lot about you. I've heard stuff here and there from you at church and stuff like that, but I actually haven't sat down with you to hear your story. So I just found out you came from Romania.
Yeah. Whole different country.
Is it?
Yeah. Some people don't know where it's at, honestly.
It's Eastern Europe, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's like right by Hungary and France,
Japan.
Germany. Oh, what?
I said Japan.
No, not really.
So, and you said it was a communist. Was it part of the USSR?
No.
No.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No. But yeah, it was communist until they removed the president that was causing it to be communist.
Wow. Yeah. Communism sucks.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I think we talked about that, Jason, didn't we?
I think at some point we did.
We talked a little bit about communism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't like the ideology that fuels communism. It's pretty horrible.
Mm-hmm.
So you came from Romania.
Yeah.
You came to the States when you were.
So I was like, my parents say I was 3 months, but when I calculated it, it doesn't come out to 3 months, but whatever. We actually moved to the States because my brother had a heart condition where your heart is split in like 4. And as you get older, it's supposed to close. Well, his wasn't closing. So I guess they couldn't do it in Romania.
Wow.
So we were actually able to have a good, legitimate reason to move to the States.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did they fix it?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yep. My brother
That's
is
good.
very well and healthy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He was the flower man at my wedding.
The flower man.
Yeah. It's a thing. It's a thing now.
I don't know how I feel about that.
You should watch it and then you might change your mind.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't like dress like a girl or anything. He was the one throwing the flowers and he made it funny.
Okay. All right. I think my kids are supposed to do something like that for my sister.
Yeah. It's so much fun.
I
People
want
love
them to
it.
throw like marbles or something. I don't know.
That's a little rough.
Hey, it'll be interesting.
See people with black eyes.
Yeah. So you grew up in the States.
Chicago.
Yeah,
That's where we first moved to.
that's a communist country too.
Yeah, it was pretty rough back then too. We only stayed in Chicago, I think, up until however old you are in the first grade. In the first grade, we moved to a nicer part of Illinois, the suburbs.
Okay.
So.
And when'd you move to Florida?
Was it not last year, a year and a half ago?
Oh,
Yeah, it was August of 2021.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that was all God too. Like,
That's right. Is that during COVID?
no,
Right before,
COVID
it was right
was
before, huh?
2020.
That was 2020.
Yeah.
I'm all back.
No, it's okay. Time has flown so by. It's flown by so fast that it's like,
Yeah.
what year did I move here? Has it been that long already? It has.
Yeah, it actually feels like you've been here longer.
It does.
It feels like I've known you for longer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty awesome.
When did you get here, Jason? Have you been here?
Been here the whole time, bro.
He moved to Florida when he was young.
It's just the being part of the Light Seekers.
Gotcha.
That was like 2020, I think.
2020. Okay. All right. Cool. So, you moved here. You're here recently. So, tell me about your childhood.
So yeah, we actually moved a lot. I've lived in Texas. I've lived in Arizona. I've lived in Georgia. My parents could never figure out exactly where they wanted to live. But as a child, I mean, I was really a chill child.
Did you grow up mostly in the South then?
No, I grew up in Chicago. North.
After you said you moved when you were like, oh, you moved to a nicer part of
Illinois. Yeah.
Illinois. Okay. When did you start moving around states?
When I was going into the 8th grade.
Okay.
So that's when I moved to Texas.
Texas.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure the devil had a field day with Texas. I don't know what it is about that state. That's where the majority of a lot of the bad things that went on in my life happened.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's in 8th grade.
Yeah, going into 8th grade.
Aside from the bad stuff in life, did you like Texas, living there?
No.
I didn't either.
I
did not
cried.
either.
When I went to school, my very first day, first of all, their schedule was completely different than I had ever had. But I couldn't understand because of their accents. So like I had this
Which ones, the Mexican ones or the
no,
southern?
the southern. Like remember, Chicago doesn't have, we have a northern accent, so it's completely opposite. If you can imagine a language being opposite. But I had a shop teacher who was like partially deaf, and he had a very thick country accent. And so my first day in his class, I kept asking people like, what did he say? And I started crying because I felt bad. I'm like, I don't understand what this man is saying.
Dang, that's rough.
But it was, I felt very alone. Like people looked at me weird, I guess because I sounded different than them. So yeah, it was tough.
You could definitely get ostracized from sounding different. When I moved to Colorado, I said when I was a kid, I was with my best friend Josh, and I said y'all, right? And he was like, what did you just say? I was like, I don't know what the context was, but let's just say, do y'all want to such and such?
Yeah.
Do what? Do y'all want to? And he was like, what are you saying right now? I'm like, y'all? He's like, what does that mean? I'm like, y'all. And I was like, I was a kid. I honestly didn't know. Like, I didn't realize it was a contraction. You all.
Yeah.
I just knew it as y'all.
Right.
So I'm like, y'all, like y'all.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't?
You all, y'all.
I'm like, you don't know what that means? You never heard this before? He's like, I've never heard that in my life. I'm like, what?
It's crazy.
That's when I realized I was Southern.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a different. It really is a different language. I was working with this guy, and I'm from the South, right? Mm-hmm. I was working with this guy. Pastor Nate was there working with me at the time. And we were on this paint job, and there was this brother and sister that worked there, right? And they had really, really thick accents. I'm not sure which Southern it was, but I told Nate, I was like, listen, there's this guy. You're probably not going to understand him. He sounds like a banjo. And he was like, okay. But then when he heard him talk,
he knew.
He was like, he knew what I was saying. And the owner, he's worked for this guy for a while, and the owner even was like, he was standing next to him, guy was painting, and he was telling him something, and he was just like straight faced, I have no idea what you're saying. And he just walked off.
That's funny.
It's
it'd be like that.
Yeah. The accents are crazy, man. I like accents though. I like to try them, especially like foreign accents.
Yes,
it's fun.
My brother does a very funny like Russian. I can't go to any drive-throughs with him because he will make me laugh so hard I can't order. Can
you do an accent, a Romanian accent?
Not really. It's very difficult. Something like that. If you've seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, it's very similar.
Okay. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's my family. Like, that whole family is legit my family.
Wow. All right. So, let's see here. Texas. So, what happened in Texas that was so...
So, when I first moved to Texas, I remember before I even started school, my family, we used to play tennis a lot. So we found a park nearby, and that was the first time I had ever met a girl that I was like attracted to, which was very weird because, I mean, now as an adult, thinking back to when I was little, I remember like having little crushes on girls, but I grew up in church. I didn't even know what gay was at any point in time until I was older. But yeah, when I first, we went to play tennis, and like she was just around. She's a tomboy. She was hanging around, and it was just a very weird encounter. But then when I went to high school, she ended up being at my high school. So okay, that was interesting.
Yeah. So you say you noticed you felt an attraction to her, right? What do you think that came from?
So, when I was very, very little, I don't know exactly when it happened, but I was molested at some point when I was a little
Jeez.
girl. And then after high school, well, again, I'm jumping ahead, but it was after high school that I had gotten molested and then raped within a couple years of each other. But in high school, like I was still I wanted to live a Christ-like life. Like I was one of those good Christian girls. Everybody knew that, oh, that's the girl that goes to church. But it was very random that all of that stuff started to happen. So throughout high school, like she kept trying to approach me, and I was like, I can't live like that. Like that's not, I don't feel right about it. Because I did, in my spirit, it didn't feel right. So, and plus in high school, I didn't really fit in anywhere. I kind of just tried to be friends with everybody. And I think that made me like a target. Because I was a people pleaser because I had gotten rejected, throughout my life. I was like, oh, I just want all the friends and I just want them to like me. But yeah, it was interesting for sure. High school was a journey.
So I have a question. I don't know if it's crossing any personal boundaries. And you don't have to, if there's anything that you.
No, you're good.
So the person that molested you when you were a child, was that a man or a woman?
It was a man.
Okay.
And I kind of feel like it was more than one person. But I feel like the Lord is also protecting me from that right now because of who I think it is. So it's hard. It's hard to know.
Yeah. That's tough. That's really tough. And for me, it's difficult to have these type of conversations. Cause like, that's like hearing that it's like damaging to the soul,
Yeah.
But I couldn't ever know what that was like for you. But I was molested as a child too.
Oh.
And I had some sexual situations when, as a child that I never should have been in. But also as far as I know, I was pretty innocent. I didn't really understand what was going on.
Right.
And I knew it was wrong, but some of the sexual encounters that I had were novel and fascinating, as a child. It was like something I never experienced. Not necessarily the molestation part.
Yeah.
But so do you think, so you said when I asked where do you think it came from, the attraction to the girl in 8th grade, you mentioned the molestation. So it being a male, how do you think that had an effect?
I mean, men are supposed to make you feel safe, right? I mean, that's what a father figure is, and that's when they do something that hurts you, even though it's not like pain, you know what I mean? It's just you're damaging that person. Yeah. It's like, see, I lost my train of thought. What was the question? Oh, why? Okay,
yeah, how does it relate?
I mean, it's hard because it wasn't until more things happened to me that I felt like I wanted to stay away from men. Like I remember after I had gotten raped and I was hanging out with this guy and I was like, I just all of a sudden felt so uneasy. And I'm like, you have to leave. And it was after that the same chick that I saw at the park when I first moved to Texas, she just so happened to step right in right after all of that stuff happened. And so in my mind, I'm like, well, she's a female. Like, what could she possibly do? Like, how is she going to hurt me physically? But she was very manly looking. So she was very strong. But I think at the end of the day, it's just when a man has repeatedly done something to you, like crossing the boundary, I think at that point, it's like a mental thing. It's just like, I don't want that. You know, any guy can just do the same thing. Like, what do they care? So, I don't know. It's just like once you get to a certain point, it's like, I've had enough. I don't want to risk that happening again. So let me just not.
Wow. Do you think that's a common theme for female attracted females?
Yeah. I mean, the majority of gay people that I've been around have all had similar stories. And it's the same thing that happened to me. There's like one instance where I know someone who says nothing happened to her and she's just been gay ever since she's little. However, I have a hard time believing that. I think things can happen to us when we're super little, and because there's no way for us to know, you know, was that wrong? Was that right? I think that's our brain is like trying to just like shove it down and be like, no, this is not a problem.
Or it also could be miscategorized as we experience it because we don't have a way to we don't have a category for it,
Yeah.
so it gets put into like a miscellaneous, or it gets miscategorized, and then as we grow older we look into the category that we learned that was sexual activity, and nothing shows up there
Yeah.
because we didn't even know that category existed as a child. Could be that.
That too, yeah.
So you mentioned she was strong, and that you figured, well, she's a woman, so she really couldn't, like, what could she do
Yeah.
to hurt me? Did you encounter any physical abuse in that relationship, or was it a relationship?
Yeah. So it's such a long story in a way because it started in high school and it worked its way up until about a few years ago. Like it was very hard to get rid of this person. I mean, I know she legit told me that Satan sent her to do his work, and she came into my life for a reason. And I mean, I can't blame it all on her. I allowed it, you know, but at the same time, I was so broken that I didn't know any better. I was just hopeful. I'm like, well, maybe, you know, maybe I can help her. Maybe I can help her come to Christ, like whatever. But you really can't do that when you're in sin. You know what I mean? Like, it was easier for her to drag me down than it was for me to get her out because I wasn't a strong Christian. Like, I always went to church every Sunday. I was a part of worship. Like, I didn't miss Sundays. And so when she came into my life, I did. And that's when everything just shattered.
Did you feel at the time, or like, were you ever outwardly expressing being gay?
Yes.
Or was it in certain circles, or?
No, I mean, yes, in certain circles. However, because she looked like such a guy, it didn't really bother me when I was in public with it because I'm like, most people think she's a guy. So, I mean, everybody would call her sir. Like, she legit looked like a boy.
Wow.
And
Did she identify as a woman?
Yes. However, she would constantly say, I don't feel like I'm a woman. I feel like I'm a man. And I mean, she's gone back and forth on like trying to get surgery, but I'm like, Lord Jesus.
I know one guy that got surgery, and I don't know how things worked out for him, but he chopped his dick off.
Oh, man.
Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, I didn't know this stuff was
thing.
That is real.
Yeah, it's real. It is legit real. And I've been around her when she would start to take testosterone, and just like she's already cuckoo. Like, it just made it worse. But that's just it. It's like God only knows the spirit she's had, because her childhood, the way she grew up, she was molested by her sister and a whole bunch of other family members. And so it's heartbreaking at the same time, because I'm like, you're just living in this darkness and you think there's nothing better. And it's, people just don't know. People don't know about deliverance. People don't know about fully dying to themselves.
Okay. So I have a lot of questions. I'm very curious.
No, you're good. Ask away.
So she could be violent.
Yeah.
Was it really common?
That she didn't start getting violent, like physically, like putting her hands on me, until about like a year after I had let her into my life. Like the very first time I ever got arrested was because of her. We were so in Dallas, there's a place called Oaklawn. No, not Oaklawn. What is it called? Anyways, it's a little gay town in Dallas, and they have like a bunch of gay bars, and people just go out and do whatever. And we were out, and she was pushing me like in public. Well, first of all, she hit my head against the we were in a cab about to go home because she lost my keys to the car. So we got in a cab, and like we were ready to go, and she just manifested, took my head right into the window. And the cab driver was like, get out of my cab. I'm not dealing with this. And so we get out, and she starts like pushing me into bushes. And I was gone. I mean, I had done, I think I took Xanax. I did cocaine that night. I drank. We all went out, and like I was so gone.
That's
but
quite the
I'm
mix.
still knowing that this is not okay. So
that was the first time.
Yeah, that was the first time, like, and to do it in public too. That was a different story.
And to take advantage of the situation where you were like at a weak point.
Yeah.
Basically.
And so I don't remember, because I never looked. Like at one point she pushed me in the bush. I'm trying to get out. Now this is not like a soft bush. This is a bush with like spikes, and it's all dried out and whatever. So I'm trying my hardest. I'm in a dress, like I'm all scratched up everywhere. And I just hear, hey, you don't treat a woman like that. And I don't know who said it, but then she got mad because she was messed up too. So she starts like fighting with those guys. And so I guess someone called the cops, and they came. Well, she had my driver's license, and I had a traffic ticket warrant. So she's like, oh, my girlfriend's out there. Can you please go look for her? Here's her license. They found me. They bring me to her. She's already in handcuffs. Then they're like, oh, you have a warrant, a traffic ticket warrant. We have to take you in. And then they separated us. And then I got taken to this place that was in the middle of nowhere in Dallas. Mind you, I lived in Arlington, which was like 40 minutes, maybe 30, 40 minutes away. No money, no cell phone, no nothing.
Dang.
Yeah, it's a crazier story, but I'll just leave it at that.
Wow. So do you think that's a common theme in lesbian relationships?
I think it is in certain ones. And I hate to make it about race, but you generally don't hear of white women like being violent with one another. It's mainly African American community. And I'm not saying like that's how it is. Just from what I've seen and what I've experienced. I've heard a lot of
too. Probably the Latinas too.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of stories from I mean, I used to play women's football. So I was around a lot of angry women because they were playing real tackle football. Like, this isn't just, oh, let's put on a jersey. No, your helmet, pads, you're running into people.
Dang.
Yeah. So I've heard some stories, and women can get really violent. It's not just men. Definitely women too.
Wow. So you were openly, that's the word I was looking for. You were openly,
Openly, just not to people that really knew me. I had a few friends who knew about this just because we all went to high school together.
these flies.
I see it. It's like right here. Okay. But no, like people that were close to me or like family or things like that, they didn't know.
Okay. Were you also openly a Christian?
Yes.
So what how did people respond to that?
Well, I kind of stopped going to church when I got together with her.
Why?
She would occasionally go, to like a black people church. She would go every now and then, but it was just you couldn't really feel anything in these churches that we were going to. It was just very like, oh, you're in church. Okay, cool. There's some music. They're preaching and screaming. Like this is how it goes, But my friends that did know, they weren't in church, so they didn't judge me. I don't think that there's many Christians that I was close to that I was ever open with it because I felt like they would judge for sure.
Okay. So you didn't really have interactions with other Christians that knew you were gay.
Mm-mm.
But the interactions that you had with other people outside of church, they didn't judge you?
No, I mean,
Christian
not
and
to
gay?
my face. And I really never got asked, like, hey, how can you be a Christian and live this lifestyle at the same time? Nobody ever asked that. The thing is when I first started going the other way, it was only like fulfilling for like, I don't know, maybe the first 2 weeks. And then after that, I'm like, man, this really doesn't feel right. And because I had been rejected so many times, I'm like, no, this person's here. They love me, whatever. Like, I want to hold on to them. But I was holding on to toxicity.
Wow. So it was thrilling for a couple of weeks, and then were you feeling like you were condemning yourself? Did you feel like it was wrong, like it was really wrong, it was a sin to be gay?
Yes,
You did.
I did. Again, in high school, like the most I ever did with that girl was kiss in high school. And even that was different than like with guys. It's a completely different feeling. And so I don't know.
Seems like it'd be a lot better to kiss a girl than a kid.
Yeah, you don't have anything poking your face. But it was just
Unless she's Italian, maybe.
no, she's black.
I think the joke went.
Yeah, it did. Oh, Italian. Get it. But what was your original question?
I don't know. You know?
ADHD over here.
I think you were asking. She was talking about how she didn't really go that far with her in high school, and then how to.
I know. I can't
progress.
remember what the question was though.
It's the
Was it
tense.
about like other people? I guess.
So
asking.
I was asking about. It's probably so frustrating for people that are watching. They're like, "You just said this."
I know, right?
They're following it better than we are.
I know.
So you, you were. Oh, okay. So you were open. You had judgment, or you didn't
Open
have
Christian.
judgment.
Yeah.
Did you have any judgment from outside?
I don't believe that I did.
Okay,
At
so
least not to my knowledge. I know people would
yourself,
talk.
though.
Oh, to
You
myself.
felt
Yeah,
like
you
it
kinda
was
did.
wrong.
Yeah. So eventually I started feeling conviction.
Okay.
And it wasn't until because I felt so lonely in this relationship, I felt like I didn't have anybody to talk to because I'm like, nobody's going to understand. And so,
Looking back, do you still feel like nobody would have if you talked
yeah.
about it?
And I know because my mom has made a comment to me before. So I know that if I would have tried to talk to anybody in my family, it would have been a disaster. Not that they're awful people. They just, growing up being Baptist, they think completely different.
Yes, you're going to hell.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much.
And so that's the one thing I want like people to really know. Like, hey, you're not going to hell for that. And especially if you learn to, like, if you really truly desire a relationship with God and you want to be in heaven and all of this, like, it takes a lot of dying to yourself every day. And it's, yeah, but again, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, I wanna bring up this point on that note. What you said is actually pretty controversial. Like, you won't go to hell for that. And what I think is that it's not sins that'll send you to hell.
Right.
It's sin. It's a singular sin of not believing on Jesus.
Right.
And as you were telling me your story, I was actually seeing a parallel in my life. Because even though I've never had any sexual attraction to men, I was sleeping with girls throughout high school. And even off and on until my 20s. When I got married, then I was only with my wife until we split up. And then being broken and hurt, I went back to that vice. And I believed on, like, the whole time, like, I had a heart for God, but I was also very hurt and broken. And in my younger days, I had a heart for God, but I also just the vast variety of experience in life was like I'm a very curious person. And so I've done a lot of different things just because I want to know, like, what is this? You know, what are we talking about here? So I experimented with different drugs. I really liked the process of chasing a female and winning her. And then I'd get bored quickly. And I broke a lot of hearts. And you know, I didn't even know what I was doing too. Like, in the culture that I grew up in, not necessarily my home culture, but like in school, it was like, this is just how it is. You know, you date people and you move on.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. But there were internal things that played into that was like, that I don't know how other people dated and moved on. Like, they may have been really looking for somebody to spend life with, you know? And though I kind of was, I also just wanted the thrill.
Yeah.
And I wonder if do you think if you had a new girl, that thrill would have come back? That 2-week thrill that you got from...
Yeah, because I've been with other females.
Okay, so, and then you got the thrill back.
Yeah, and again, like, it was different every time. Like, it would be a roller coaster ride. You know, things would be great, everything's great for a while, and then things go downhill, and it's just like, Emma, what are you doing here? You know, like I've had that moment many times.
This is so strange because I can totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean it's real.
Yeah, maybe this is just a common thing of dating women.
Yeah, it's hard dating women.
Yeah.
I'm like, I give men their props because two women being in a relationship is so crazy.
Yeah, it
It's just
sounds crazy.
It is. It's nonsense. Like, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I do it for so long?
I don't know.
I mean, I was literally living two different lives, and it was exhausting.
Wow. Okay, so tell me more about that.
So, my mom and dad, if you're watching, I love you so much. They're, you know, being Romanian, they were never like super involved in my life other than asking me questions. My mom definitely had like some prophetic stuff going on because anytime I did something bad, she would know. But that did happen again. Question again?
Okay, so you were living two different lives.
Oh yeah, living two different lives. And so I had actually had the guts to bring this chick to my parents' house, and they thought she was a guy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they had no idea, but they have no idea what the outside world is really like. Like, they don't get out much. They're kind of homebodies.
They brought their culture with them.
Yeah, and so they're just so oblivious to what's really out there. And so anytime I would be talking about this person, I'd have to say him, right? Because I didn't want to give myself away. And so it slipped a couple of times. It did, with like different people. But it was hard. It was really, really hard. And this person I keep referring back to, my first girlfriend, I witnessed how she was when she was at home with her parents and when she was not. And so
Was she different people too?
yeah. I mean, she was a Gemini anyway. I don't know if you know much about Geminis.
I don't.
They have multiple personalities. And so, I'm not saying I go
don't
by
officially ascribe
horoscopes.
to that.
No, I don't. I'm just saying I know that there are specific traits that they say about it that's actually true.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, when she would go to her mom's house, she would make her voice a little more high pitched because she had a pretty deep voice. I mean, she smoked cigarettes, smoked weed, whatever. So she would like have to wear makeup, which she hated doing. She had to put on like feminine clothes, which she also hated doing. And like she had to pretend a lot. And I'm like, I only did it for a little bit. That was her whole life.
Dang.
So I think when you do that for a long time, you lose track of who you are because you're going back and forth. And it's like, her mom knew, but her mom was like, you're not coming into my house like that.
Wow.
And so she would do whatever, you know, just to be able to go and see her little brothers. Like, and again, I hated that I had to keep it from people. I hated it so much because there were things that I just wanted to like get off my chest, but I just didn't. I'm like, no, there's nobody who I can talk to. So
did it ever become like when you said you felt like it was wrong, right? Did you ever get to a point where you feel like you got cold to it or numb to it, to the feeling of it being wrong?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, like the more I would give into that lifestyle, the more I just kind of, I mean, look, I'm just going to say this. You can't serve Jesus and be in constant sin of something you know is wrong. You can't live both lives. It's just not a thing. No, you're good. So, you know, there were times where because I wasn't like intentionally trying to have a relationship with God, because I'm like, God, I know this is wrong. Like, how can I possibly pray to you right now when I'm doing something I know is wrong. And so, yeah, I mean, again, it was just a roller coaster.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. Um, and then it's like even more so if you really have an understanding of God's love and grace, right? How it's like there's nothing that you can do, nothing that you've done, nothing that you're doing that can separate you from God's love,
Yeah.
right? But then it's like, okay, I hear you, but I'm currently like doing something that I know is, whether or not God is offended by my sin, my conscience is striking me down for this.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it possible that I can come to God boldly as a child of God when I look at my life, and even if I might be able to act like I am, I don't feel like I'm God's child because I don't act like him.
Mm.
I'm nothing like him.
Yeah.
And in that place, it's like is that how you felt?
What, like
Like what I just described?
Yes, but there were moments of desperation where, I mean, I remember one specific time there was a park by our apartment, and I went for a walk, and I remember falling to my knees in the middle of this field, not even caring who's around, and I'm like, Lord, get me out of this situation. I'm sorry for, doing this. I'm afraid she's going to hurt me if I try to leave her.
Wow.
And so the things that would happen were not always just like, oh, okay, let me go ahead and get that request for you. Like, there's consequences. And even though he'll get you out of that situation, it's still not comfortable. And there were many times where he got me out, and I just kept going back. Because I learned this all recently about like spirits and deliverance and all that. But it was that whatever spirits she had just kept pulling me back. And I mean, that moment when she looked at me, there was a time we were in my apartment, and she was a rapper, of course. So she was like writing music, and she just like pauses and looks at me and goes, "What if I told you I was sent to you by Satan to do his work?" And I looked at her and I said, "Excuse me?" And she goes, "I'm just kidding." But the grin she had on her face, like, gave me chills, because I'm like, that was so evil. And it's like, the fact that she told me this, I just wasn't in that relationship with God where I had discernment and I had all this other stuff. I was just confused. And so, I mean, it was there, and there were so many events that I should have been like, I don't even want to know you as a person. Like, please get out of my life. I never said that to her. However, I tried many times. And it's evil. It's so evil.
So how did you end up getting out?
So, man, it went on for so long. I think it wasn't until a year. So when COVID hit, I was in Arkansas, so I wasn't living in Texas anymore. She had moved back in with her ex-girlfriend, who, like, I don't understand how she deals with her. But I just like let her know. I'm like, look, I'll be your friend. Like, I'll try and be there for you, but I can't continue to be there for you if you're going to continue to do damage to yourself. Like, she would go out and drink, like take a bunch of shots, and then like pass out, not even in public. So I knew she was super broken. I knew that. And she was just doing all these other things to try and like fill the emptiness she was feeling. So yeah, I had to let her know, like, I can't really be around you because it's like I'm saying how you're behaving is okay and it's not. And so a couple months went, we didn't communicate anymore. And then I ended up moving here. And even a couple of months ago, she was hitting up a friend of mine that's in Texas, like, hey, do you know where Emma is? Is she good? Like, what's going on with her? Like, she's still trying. It's pretty nuts.
So you moved. Now, as far as like, do you think do you think you were born with a proclivity to be attracted to women, or do you think that's something that you grew into?
I think it's something, again, it started at a young age, but I didn't know. And I truly believe that getting molested or raped, anything like that at a very young age, I'm not like, I don't know. I'm not a scientist, doctor. I don't know how our brains work. But it just happens. And I feel like that's also like a way for the enemy to step in and be like, oh, let me go ahead and claim this person. I think he literally tried to do that.
So you you weren't like thinking about, like, did you ever think about girls and have entertained the thoughts of like crushing on them before you had an attraction to her? Or did you have the attraction first and then you started thinking in that way?
That's tough. I don't know. I think just because of how she was with me, I don't necessarily think it was like, oh, she's a woman or she's a girl, I think she's cool or she's pretty or whatever. She's a tomboy again, so it's not like I was like, oh, she's really pretty. It was just, there was an attraction that I can't even explain.
Were you attracted to her before or after she started interacting with you, or you saw? Yeah.
I think it was before.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was before because I remember she like came and sat down next to me on the bench and I was like, I felt some kind of way and I'm like, this is very weird. I've never experienced this. Again, it wasn't until I was older that I remember being in like middle school and like there were girls that I thought were really pretty and like I really wanted to be their friend. I don't know if that was necessarily
I felt like that too.
like a sexual attraction. I think it was just, wow, you're really pretty. Like, let's be friends. You know, again, I didn't know. I didn't know that women and women could be together or that men and men could be together.
Yeah, strange territory.
It is.
It's definitely strange when you start entertaining, you know, because it's like, where did it stop? If there was a purpose, right, which I believe it's a man and a woman. And I think even scientifically, biologically, it makes sense because that's the only way we're procreating.
Right.
Right. Other than that, when you start switching things up, it's like man could be with a man, woman could be with a woman, man could be with a donkey, or woman could be with the horse. You know, it starts just getting.
It's wild.
Like we're like logically, if you want to start, like people were saying back when Obama made gay marriage legal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there were a bunch of Christians like, this is a slippery slope.
Yeah.
First it's gonna be gay marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's gonna be they're gonna make pedophilia legal, then bestiality illegal. I forget the other term for that. That's the biblical term. Sex with animals. That's what I'm talking about. And it's like, fast forward, it's been what? It's been like not even a decade. It's been since it was legalized.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what year that was. What, 2015?
I have no idea.
Well, it hasn't even been a decade, I think.
Yeah.
And already, um, not only is it there are groups and organizations
Mm-hmm.
that are attempting to normalize pedophilia. They call it
Oh, yeah.
MAPS now.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Minor attracted persons.
They in Greece actually they don't look at pedophilia as a crime. They look at it as a disease.
It might be both. Maybe it should be both. And then you got the trans movement.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got people that identify as creatures now and marry or want to marry inanimate objects
Mm-hmm. I've seen that.
or animals. And I guess, there's always been examples of those types of things. And maybe it hasn't gotten more common. Maybe we just have more access to information.
Yeah.
It could be any of that or all of it.
Yeah.
But I try to get outside of my echo chamber, and my social media accounts like to keep me inside of them,
Mm-hmm.
but I try and do research and learn as much as possible. As far as getting outside of the box
Mm-hmm.
that has been provided for me so graciously. So how? So I want to come back to some of this, but I want to know a little bit more about what happened. Where so you're married now, right?
I am.
To a man.
Mm-hmm.
And a very gorgeous man. Look
Yeah,
at
he
him.
is.
Look at him. Let's see him. There he is.
Hey.
Hey, babe.
Can I have your number?
You got it.
He got a French ass name too. Huh?
I know. Sure does. I love it.
And so do you now.
Yeah.
So something happened
Yeah.
apparently. So what exactly happened there?
So I'll try to make this short. In 2019, I had moved to Arkansas to help my mom out because she had knee surgery. And so I got out of Texas for a while, was in Arkansas. That was a miserable place. Things just kind of happened. And that's when I strongly felt the desire of going to Africa. And so the Lord just kept tugging at my heart, and I was like, Emma.
That's not a metaphor for going back to your ex.
No, I was not. No.
You didn't miss the rains down in Africa.
No, not there. You're funny. I love that song.
Me too.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite.
Their only good song.
Yeah, for real. And so I just kept feeling like continuing to do the things that I know I shouldn't be doing, and feeling it's not like I was just doing things and I was like, oh, I have to stop. It's bad. I was feeling conviction, and it was heavy. And I just got to the point where I was like, okay, God, like, you're going to have to help me with this, because I don't know how to stop. And so, in March of 2021, some stuff happened, and I'm not saying that was punishment from the Lord. I know that was him getting my attention, and I had been, messing with women again. So I'm like, I have to stop. I have to. And so I again didn't know anything about deliverance. I didn't know that there was a way for me to be set free from this. And so a friend of mine, well, she used to be my friend, asked me she's like, you can't heal where you've been broken. And so she's like, why don't you come live back in Texas with me? She's like, just until, you know, you can get yourself on your feet and you don't have to be living with your parents. And so I did. I moved with her, and it was kind of good because she was pretty close with the Lord. And so she was one of those people that I was like, I really don't want her to see my filth. And so it kind of helped me like stay away from that lifestyle. And it's funny, like we went out to eat one time, and the waitress that at the restaurant that was clearly hitting on me. And I'm talking to Kara, and I'm like, Kara, do you see? I'm trying to get away from it, and it just follows me. And so I was like, I'm not tripping, right? Like she was being some kind of way. She's like, no, I totally saw it. I'm like, okay, so it's not just me. And so a friend of my sister's who does eyebrows did my eyebrows. And so she starts talking to me about deliverance. And I'm like, what is deliverance? And she's like, oh, you know, like there's a seminar you can go to and they'll help you. And I'm like, but what is it? And all she could tell me was a friend of hers that went and like what happened during her deliverance. And I'm like, that sounds intriguing. And so, you know, the girl she was telling me about like full blown manifested during her deliverance and was.
So can you explain what I'm sure you're going to get there as far as how you're explaining what deliverance is, but can you explain what you mean by manifest?
So whenever she was praying for this individual, like her hands started to do weird things, and I don't know if you've seen The Exorcist. That's how it was described to me. Like, and again, I used to watch horror movies and like ghost movies all the time. That's just what we did for fun, which is so silly. But there was something like when she told me about that, I'm like, I've always felt the anger and rage that I had deep inside. And I'm like, man, if I go and do this, like maybe something's going to manifest out of me like that, you know, like I want it gone. And so, the more she told me about it, I'm like, yeah, I got to go check this out. And she explained like, it's more inner healing. Like, and so basically what it was, this seminar, it was Freedom and Fullness is what it was called. And I went in July of...
This is in Arkansas?
In Texas.
Oh, in Texas.
Yeah, this is in Texas. It was in Dallas. And so I went to the seminar. It was like 6 or 8 hours on a Saturday. And that's when they started talking about like the spirits and the deliverance and like Freemasonry. They went through all of it. And so as they're like talking about this stuff, I just feel things inside. Like they'll mention, I know Freemasonry was in my family. That's a given. Just because of everything I've learned about it. And then like seeing stuff in my family, like I definitely feel like it's in our bloodline. But yeah, they just started calling out these things and telling me to renounce them. And so I did. And so after we finished, I asked the lady, because she would do like one-on-one.
Okay, so this was a seminar where you in like a group of people?
Yeah, it's just you pay for the seminar, and it's just you go and listen to. It's a ministry.
Okay, so you pay for a seminar and you're sitting down kind of like an audience
Mm-hmm.
and the director or the speaker is telling everybody to renounce stuff.
So first they give you this booklet, and it's scripture, and it's scripture that ties into deliverance. And so they go through all of that. They read a lot of scripture, and they break it down for you. And then it's after that they give you a sheet that had like, I don't know, like 12 or 15 different categories that had a whole bunch of like check off if this has happened or what you know of your family history. And so each block they'll go through it and be like, okay, whichever ones you check, that's the one you renounce.
Okay.
And so we just went down the list until all of it was over. And then you can decide to do like a one-on-one where it's just you and this lady that owns, it's her ministry.
Do you pay for that too?
No.
Okay.
She actually she's like, you know, if you feel led to give, you can. But she doesn't charge you for it. And so I went 3 times, I think 3 times, and each day is something different. So like the first day, she'll go through stuff and it's kind of like peeling back an onion. Like there's layers and layers. And so she was just digging to, figure out all that's going on. And so she prays. And so even at that time, like the only thing I did was yawn, because she did say this is how things can come out. And so like I would yawn. And anyways, the second time,
You're making me want to yawn.
sorry. The second time,
I'm trying to hold it back so it doesn't look like I'm getting delivered.
well,
Maybe I need
so
to.
funny. But yeah, it was just it was chill. Like I could feel things going on inside, and like she would bring something up and I would just start crying. And so after that, it was like we did a courtroom so she could see things in the spiritual realm. And so the very last thing you do is you go into the courtroom of heaven and you talk about your case and like all this stuff. And it's a lot. It's a long process, but it definitely helped. Like it was after that. So I'm like driving, I think it was maybe a week or 2 after going through the first deliverance. And I'm like driving around and I'm like, when's the last time I looked at a chick? I know that's so random, but that was my thought. And I'm like, I'm not attracted to women anymore. It was just so sudden. It wasn't anything that I had to like work at, or, I renounced it. Whenever we went through that list, that was on there. And so I felt different when I left. I was like, man, this is new. And I've never gone back since then. And then like coming here, moving to Florida, coming to Light Seekers, and how the deliverance is done here, it was totally different. Like my first deliverance through Light Seekers, yeah, them demons are screaming. And I'm like, at first I didn't know what to think because it didn't happen to me before. So I'm like, I remember going through deliverance and just being like, where is this coming from? I remember in my mind, I'm like, I can't make myself scream like this, so I know it's not me. And there were just things that I didn't even know about. And of course, being around people who are like prophetic and all this stuff, like people just knew. People knew what to call out. And it was just like the freedom felt unreal. And even now, like it's not just freedom from being bisexual, it's freedom from anger and rage and all these other things that we don't even think about. And they're there.
Wow. So I'm trying to remember I had a question about this, your deliverance. So basically these spirits are within, and you would say you were a Christian the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I see this a lot on Facebook where they claim Christians can't have demons. And I'm like, I don't argue with these people.
Yeah.
But I ask them questions.
Yeah.
And I asked them like, how many deliverance have you done?
Yeah.
And it's usually none.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so what kind of experience are you talking from? Well, this is scripture, brother. Okay. So what's scriptures then? And they pull from the idea that if we're filled with the Holy Spirit, then the Holy Spirit won't share room with
A house divided against itself
Mm-hmm.
cannot stand.
So this is crazy because in the podcast with Julio, we talked about this too, this exact issue, and I addressed it. I actually forgot about that, but what came to me on the spot, like I would usually refer to like the woman that came to Jesus and she wanted deliverance for her child. She wanted the demons cast out of her child, but she wasn't a Jew. And so Jesus told her, what did he say?
You said it's not right for the
Bread for the children to
right.
go to dogs, right? And that's pretty racist. But she was so humble about it. She's like, even the dogs get to eat the crumbs from the master's table. And he was like, oh man, great is your faith. And I think he only told that phrase to people that weren't Jewish. And so that's pretty amazing. And that was about deliverance, right? So, oh yeah, how does this all connect? Because the children of God, if he's talking about, he's saying, no, you're not going to get the demons cast out of you because that is only for God's children. It's like, who are you talking about?
Yeah.
Are we going to say, oh, he's talking about Jewish people? Then, okay, so you only get deliverance if you're Jewish? Like, come on now. We got to see how this relates. And that doesn't make any sense, right? Because that's not what was happening in Acts. Like, only Jewish people got delivered. No. So, but you could say, yeah, but that doesn't specifically say. And so I was going to go there, right? Last podcast. But literally on the spot, I had never thought about this before or connected it. But I was like, even to reply to God won't share a temple, the Holy Spirit won't share a temple with the demon. I was like, he did in the Old Testament. He did with Dagon. And Dagon was found with his head cut off. Right?
And his hands broken off.
So it's like, well, I want to go into that. Like, what kind of significance does that have?
Well, I was going to go and add to that too. Like, when a house divided against itself cannot stand, like, when you think about that, it's funny because people would be like, oh, that means that you can't share. But think about it. Like, if a house divided against itself cannot stand, you logically would really make more sense to say the demons want to divide the house, so therefore the person cannot stand. It wouldn't make sense if the person's not a believer for that verse to apply to them. But if they're a believer, then the enemy wants them not to stand. So it's the same as an army. If you have an army and they're divided against one another, the army itself cannot fight. So once I looked at it from that view, from that standpoint, I understood that verse to actually mean that the enemy's intention is that it cannot stand.
That's a very good point. That makes a whole lot more sense in that context, because it's like, if why would the enemy focus on possessing or oppressing? See, this is another one that the Bible doesn't use oppression and what's the other one? Possession. It uses the word demonized. And so that's the word I use. And people want to talk about, well, Christians can be oppressed but not possessed. And it's like,
look up the definition of oppressed though.
Right now? Let's do it.
No, I mean, you can, but if you look up the definition of oppressed, what is it? Isn't it something about possession?
Let's
look it up.
Here.
Subject to harsh.
I spelled it wrong. Look at me. Subject to harsh and authoritarian treatment. Subject. Subject to.
Harsh, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, to be subjected, I mean, it means you're under the control.
You're under something else's authority.
Right. Cause or force to undergo. Cause or force.
That's being subject to something.
Yeah, so to bring a person under one's control or jurisdiction.
Exactly. Exactly. And people don't know like how we open the door for that to happen. They think that that's not a thing, but it is.
Yeah, so I mean, I never even thought about that one, but that's good. Like Christians can be possessed or oppressed but not possessed. It's like what's the diff? Why does it matter then? Like
it comes down to being the same
well,
thing.
they can't be owned by the devil. Okay, we'll give you that. They could still have demons inside of them.
Exactly.
The statement Christians can be oppressed but not possessed does not in any way what's the word I'm looking for? Not negate, but
Invalidate.
Thank you, Jason. You're a word guy. I love it. Invalidate. I don't even know how to phrase that statement now. Whoops.
No, I mean,
You know what I'm saying though,
Yeah.
right?
It doesn't invalidate that basically, regardless of what term you're using, oppression, possession, either way, it still means demonize. What does it matter which word you're using? The only reason I think people might make that argument is because it's the idea of, well, oh, you can't control like your body but after my experience with and all of us would be able to attest to it, yeah, they can definitely control your body. I think
yes.
it's really just degrees.
Yeah, and that's still the definition of oppression.
Right.
Yeah.
It's to force
Yeah.
control.
I mean, think about when you're a kid and you do things that you don't even know the enemy is watching. And I know it sounds crazy to anybody who doesn't understand the Bible and the spiritual warfare and all of that. But it's like when you're a kid and you become a Christian, you get saved as a little kid, you don't know what doors were open. So you can't be like, oh, I renounce this and I
Right.
renounce that. These things are on you now. And so, I mean, again, it wasn't until I was 34 that I figured all of this out. Like I went through life being miserable for no reason. I easily could have gotten myself out of that, but I think the enemy was after me so hard, I just didn't see it.
Do you think it was the desperation that brought you to the point of getting demons cast out?
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember exactly when it was. I was contemplating suicide and I had a whole bottle of pills in my hand and I'm like, I just want to take these and not wake up. And I'm like sitting on the floor looking at these pills and it's just like, this doesn't feel right. I need help. And so that was actually when I decided to go to therapy. And I had a Christian counselor. He was amazing. And I went to him on and off. But even like telling him was hard. Like telling him that I was bisexual and all these things. And once I did open up, he was trying to help me. But it was an interesting walk, even at that time, because I still went back. It took me, again, it wasn't until that deliverance that I was completely like, I don't want that.
So, I'm sorry, did I kick you?
No, you're good.
One thing that I've seen, I saw, I forget who it was, but somebody posted a testimony, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was a post. It wasn't a video. It was like a before and after picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of a dude that looked hella gay,
Mm-hmm.
and then the same guy that looked like very well manly put together.
Mm-hmm.
Not like super masculine, but
Yeah.
like, like he looked like a stud. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
In the most non-gay way.
I understand.
So you got this feminine looking dude, the stud looking dude, and then the text over top was talking about how he met God, got delivered, and is living for Jesus, and is no longer gay, right? And there was a lot of comments, and a good number of them said something to the effect of, "Congratulations, dumbass, you're bisexual." So, how do you know for sure that you're not bisexual?
I mean, if you find attraction to both, like female and male, that's a hard question because it's like, I know people who seem like they are bisexual or gay, and they don't live that lifestyle. They're living their life for Jesus. Now, I can't sit here and say if they've ever like actually was physical with someone. I think that changes things a little bit because it's like once it becomes physical and you start, it's all about feeling, like how you feel.
Right.
Because when I was with another female, it felt different. Not in a bad way. It was just, but it was also, it is in a bad way. It's very perverted. It's a very, very perverted thing. So it, like, to know that you are bisexual, it's, you'll know.
Also, I went to look up the definition of perverted because that's something I didn't even know. I kind of understood from context that it meant like gross, but that's not even what it means.
It's deeper than that.
Yeah, it's actually really,
I got a question.
really deep. You got a question? Okay, hold on just a second. Perverted. Of a thing having been corrupted, distorted. Look at this. She's listening. Oh, you don't want to say nothing now, huh? Because I caught you. She usually be like, I didn't understand that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. We caught you.
They listen.
Of a thing having been corrupted or distorted from its original course, meaning, or state. That's such a good word.
Yeah.
And it's been perverted.
Yeah.
The word has been perverted. Jason.
Yeah, so it's interesting as we're going through this, and this is a perfect segue point. You mentioned bisexual, and you mentioned being attracted to women, but at what point, or if there was a point where you like no longer were attracted to men, or were you attracted to men throughout? And did you have relationships with men, and how did you feel about, being with women, and also how did those men feel if you told them?
Okay. Yeah, good questions, babe. The first time I knew I was attracted to women was with the same person I keep talking about. It was just the way I looked at her, like, and how I felt when I was around her. So that's when I knew something was different because I had never experienced that before. I've experienced it with guys, but never with a female. And so it was after things had gotten more physical, like after kissing her. That's when it would replay in my mind. And I'm like, man, that felt really different. And I liked it. And it's at that time, you're not really thinking about it being perverted. I think about it now and I'm just like, man, that was so not cool. But anyways, yeah, so I would go.
It's so strange because I could totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's so not cool. And I'm like, but it is though.
It is when you're like living in the world.
I mean, it is if being a man is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
like-
I mean, even with that, it's crazy. But
Such a strange situation.
yeah, it was mainly after I was raped that I was like, I don't want to be with a man. And for like a solid year or year and a half, I didn't even think about a man. I wasn't even like, oh yeah, no, guys are still cute. I just didn't want anything to do with it. And then because of how crazy everything else was, I would end up leaving the women's side and I'd go back to the guy side. And I would just, whenever I felt like it, I would just flip flop.
And did the guys know?
Only one guy knew. No, well, if you want to go far back, like there was this guy in high school that was so in love with me. And when he found out, he was pretty upset, like very upset. But again, high school.
Yeah, that's like, I can't imagine because it's like, when you're dating somebody and you're just getting to know them, right? And you're trying to figure out your footing, how this relation, like what constitutes this relationship, what's our commitment level and everything. And it's like for a guy in normal situations, it's like there's so many other guys that are better looking or more funny or more fun to be around that I have to compete with. But then you're like, but I gotta compete with all these women too? Hell no. I can't compete with any of them.
Well, it depends. Like again, it depends. In the beginning when I was basically denying that I was bisexual, I was like, no, it's just one chick. No, it's not. But in the beginning, it was still very like new to me. So at first, like if I wanted to share it with a guy, I had to like make sure that he wasn't like
A Christian?
not that he wasn't a Christian. I mean, because one of the guys that I was with, he was a Christian and he knew I was bi and he didn't have a problem with it.
Uh-oh. He probably had some fantasies.
Yeah. I won't tell his
All right.
business, but yeah, anyways, and then yeah, so it was just, did I answer your question, Jason?
Oh yeah, I feel like you're getting to it.
So when did you find out that you were not just not attracted to women anymore, but that you liked men again?
To be honest, it wasn't that I was like, oh, I'm not attracted to women anymore, I'm attracted to men. I was at a point in my life because of the relationship that I was in, and this is with a man. It was long. It was like 11 years on and off. And I'm pretty sure he was gay or bisexual and he was trying to hide it. But when I told him, he just like acted really weird about it. So I was like,
Maybe he
yeah.
thought you were trying to like, maybe, let me try and formulate this. Maybe he thought you were trying to do a reverse psychology to get him to admit.
No, I mean, I don't think that was it at all. I just
You're
think,
like, what if I told you that I was gay? And he's like,
no, you know what he said? He said I was confused. And I hate it when people say that because being bisexual is not confusion. You like what you like. You like a man and you like a woman. There's things men have that women don't and vice versa. So when he said that, I was like, wow, like you're not even worth fighting about this with. But I just think that was like him letting things out. I think he was confused.
I'm very curious what that word means. Let's see here.
Curious about confusion.
Of a person unable to think clearly, bewildered.
Mm.
Bewildered. Not in possession of. Okay. Using a word. Defining a word with a
I
word that
do
I
this
don't
all
know.
the time.
Perplexed, confused. All right, there's a loop. We're just in a loop now.
Very puzzled. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I've heard that a lot. I've heard that, like in Christian circles, that homosexuality is confusion.
Yeah. It's not.
Okay.
It's not confusion. I mean, I can't speak for everybody else. I can only speak on my experience.
Would you say it's perversion?
It is.
But it's not confusion.
Perversion. But it's not. No. It wasn't confusing to me when I was choosing to do these things.
Shoot. I'm sorry. I'm like, I feel like there's something deeper about the meaning of confusion.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to know the etymology. Root. Okay, because confused, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is not confound? I should probably do this later. Um. Okay. Here we go. Middle English confused came from frustrated or ruined. Ruined. Confuse. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Um Mix, blend, pour, disorder.
Hmm.
Mix, blend, pour together or disorder. Okay. Disorder. Jumble. Mess. So cuz I was thinking in a sense perversion and confusion can somewhat be synonymous because perversion is to be um, altered from the intended purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, to be mixed up is like if things were in order
Mm-hmm.
and then they were mixed up, it would be altered from its intended purpose.
Mm-hmm.
See, so I think that might be where they're getting that from.
Mm.
But as far as like not being in control of your mental faculties,
Mm-hmm.
that would not be the best way to describe.
No.
Okay, I'm glad that's cleared up.
Yeah. I mean, there's other people I've talked to that they're like, oh, you must have never been bisexual if you don't feel it anymore. And I'm like, no, I definitely was.
And there probably are homosexuals that are not in control of their mental faculties, by the way. Too.
No, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
My ex being one of them.
All right. So, to get maybe off into the weeds here, I don't know, but there's pretty polarized perspectives when it comes to the Christian take on homosexuality, right? I think there's a balance, and I think like if you're on the road, right, you can fall off on either side of this road, right? One side being homosexuality is a sin and homosexuals are going to hell, right? The other side being God loves everybody regardless and homosexuality is perfectly fine, right? And I think they're both off, right?
Yeah.
They're both off the road,
Yeah.
off balance.
For sure.
So the way that I see it, I've had some run-ins with I don't even know how to put this into words. Homosexual advances.
Okay.
I had when I was a kid, before I knew what gay was, or really about sex at all, me and another little boy did some gay stuff, and so that's pretty embarrassing. And then I had a particular adult do some molestation type activities. Then when I was in like little high school or a little after, I had a friend. I didn't know him all that well, but we were. Oh, I must have been of age by then. I must have been of age, but I think it was my birthday or something, and I went to this house, and there was a bunch of guys that lived there. And it was like a Christian type of men's.
Get together.
Well, it was like a house that Christian guys lived at, and they were like there to encourage each other. I won't name it,
Okay.
all that, but I came through and I was a bad influence. I was like, let's celebrate, and I'm like, can we get some drinks? And they're like, we're not supposed to drink in the house. And I was like, well, then in the backyard. They're like, I guess that's fine. And so, and I've generally always taken alcohol well. Like, I get maybe a little more energized, but there's not a huge change. And I hadn't really experienced like other people like really switching up on me, you know. And so we were like grappling, and one dude tried to grab my junk while we were wrestling, and I was like, whoa, what? I was like, and it was like a couple of times, and I was like, what's going? Like, I was confused. I'm like, what is happening right now? Did he accidentally reach into my pants? I'm like, what?
Oh my God.
And then the second time, I was like, yo, if you do that again, I'm gonna knock you out.
Yeah.
And you didn't do it again, but it was weird. That was really weird. And then another time, I was in Denver walking with Kara. We weren't married at the time. We were just hanging out in Denver, and this one dude came up and hit on me, and I was like, "This is my girlfriend." He said, well, if you ever, I'm like, nope,
No,
nope.
I'm good.
And I looked at her, and I'm like, we were just looking at each other like, well, that was really strange. That was a bold move.
Wow.
But I guess I kind of know how it feels, you know, for women that, you know, men be always like, I don't know it all that well, but I got a little taste of it. It's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is. There was something very inappropriate that happened to me in Mexico one time. Like, that was the first time I ever went to drink like in public, because the drinking age in Mexico is
like 15.
pretty much. And like, we went to some like hole in the wall bar, and I'm like on the dance floor dance, and this lady comes up behind me and reaches in between my legs and just like,
whoa.
and I was like, because at that time I was not like, nah, that I wasn't even over there at that time. And so I'm like, I felt so I don't even
assaulted.
Like, yeah, like that's really the only word you can think of, because I'm just like, here I am trying to have a good time. I'm 18 years old, I think I was 19 at the time, and I'm drunk, and then this lady just came and like touched me inappropriately out of nowhere.
So shocking. It's like,
it is just the fact that people
sober you up real
gutsy
quick
enough to like do something like that.
That's
and after that, I just felt so weird. I just kept drinking, and that didn't end good at all.
Oh, man. So Christians don't take homosexuality so well, and I know it's like culturally, like Michael Scott. I'm supposed to I can't do it perfectly, but I'm supposed to get over being weirded out by gays. We've been doing this for centuries.
I know. I mean, that's why a lot of people that I knew for a long time didn't know that I was living this lifestyle, because I was even threatened to lose my family if I said anything.
Well, it is like, to be fair, unless it's normalized in your society, which it might be there already. It definitely could be there already. But if it's not, then like for my case, I wasn't close with a lot of gay people, and I've had some gay friends, maybe one, maybe a couple, some bisexual, but it took some getting used to, because it's awkward. Like, how do you navigate like this conversation, you know, like it's easier because you're very open and honest and willing to be transparent. But it's like, if you're just a random gay off the streets and I asked you to come do a podcast with me, like, this would be very hard to navigate. And it's just not, it doesn't make relationships any easier
Right.
putting homosexuality in the mix.
Right.
And so maybe that will change being normalized. But is it a good thing that it's being normalized? The thing about it is like, if you want to normalize something, you have to indoctrinate the children, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I have a big problem with. And I noticed it actually for the first time. I really noticed that it was like being normalized from The Office, because there was a scene where Oscar is outed, and I think it's like the ending line of the show or something. He's like, "Kids, sometimes it pays to be gay."
Yeah.
I'm like, why would he say that?
I remember that episode.
I was like, why would they write that in the show? Like,
It's
how
everywhere.
about sometimes it pays to be gay? Why you say kids?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah,
It was
because
very strange.
that's what they're after, because that's where it starts. I remember seeing a video of like a gay guy, and he was just so angry at pedophilia, and you can tell he's gay, but he's like so emotional, and you can hear it. He's like, people are like this because of pedophiles, and
Like
it's
what? Like,
gay.
wow.
And like dealing, I don't think people know the toll it takes on your mind, because for such a long time it wasn't normalized, and it's like it's heavy stuff, and people don't really think of it that way. But you have to completely step away from it to really see the darkness of it. And I think, again, they're just after the kids because that's where it starts.
Definitely that. And I think that's where a lot of the, how do I put this? When you see Christians that are so polarized on the side of homosexuality is wrong, we need to be totally against this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, some of them might be indoctrinated, possessed by their religious ideology, but it also might be they've seen the effects that this is having
Mm-hmm.
on children and our culture. And it's like, where do you aim your, what's the word? I don't want to say outrage, but that's the only word that comes to mind. Like,
No, I know what you
where
mean.
it does seem to be a problem, and it seems to me that we may need to, as believers, fight the normalization of perverted sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
But on what front?
Yeah.
Because it's not working on the personal level, alienating homosexuals.
Right.
And in fact, I've seen homosexuals, I've heard stories of homosexuals being rejected by the church, or young people being rejected by the church and end up going down this path,
Yeah.
sometimes even provoked by the resentment
Mm-hmm.
of the rejection that
Mm-hmm.
they got from the religious group.
Yeah.
And I've seen homosexuals come into the church and be loved regardless of their sexual orientation,
Yeah.
and be set free and
Yeah.
delivered from that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's obviously the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And how exactly do you navigate that, especially if you're a church that is used to rejecting homosexuals?
Yeah.
If you decide, you know what, maybe we're going about this the wrong way, we
Yeah.
need to make a difference. How do you navigate that exactly? Do you have any ideas?
So all I remember at one point, a couple months ago, I was just like walking, and the Lord gave me this vision of going to places or wherever there's a lot of homosexuals and just like putting up signs of, we're here if you need prayer. And just like, not even just about prayer, but just so that they can see different. So us being believers, you know, I mean, this is why I feel like the Lord wants me to share my testimony to the whole world, because a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm too far gone. You know, I've been gay my whole life. There's like no way the Lord would love me. I'm going to hell. And, you know, Christians have done this and this and this. And like, that means we're not doing our job as a Christian. Like I would have loved if I would have had a community of believers who, instead of saying, hey, Emma, you shouldn't do this, how about like love me out of that? And I feel like we need to pray for these people. They don't know. They just don't know any better. And depending on their situation, like it's just so much that goes into it. But I really feel like instead of rejecting those people or saying you're going to hell, you need to change. Like our job is not to scare people into being a believer. We need to love people into being a believer. And so if we're there, like praying for them, whatever, like I feel like that shows them something different. And that shows, hey, maybe there are Christians out there who really, truly just love me and want me to be okay. I never really felt that from a church. And there's like stories I can tell you that would like show you that they weren't like that either. You know, like
I believe it.
Telling someone, hey, you can't
convince me.
You can't serve at my church because you're gay. And unless you want to change, I can't have you serving. Like that is not the right way to handle that situation. And so I just think at the end of the day, like those people are hurt and they're broken and they've probably been rejected a whole lot in their life. And they don't know what kind of doors that's opened and why they feel like they're so deep in it that they can't get out. But the awesome thing is there is a way out. And that's, I think a lot of times like people are like, oh, you only live once, like YOLO, you know, let's just have a blast while we're here on earth. But that's not true. We don't only live once. We have eternity promised to us. And so people are like, well, since I'm on earth and this is the only life, like I'm going to do whatever I want. But that's not how that goes. Like we do have another, like when we're in heaven, we're there for eternity. And it's like people don't want to let go of things like that they find pleasure in because they're like, well, if I'm only going to live one time, I might as well enjoy it, you know? And so I just think people don't think of it any other way. It's just, it's selfish.
Yeah, it really is selfish. And I don't know what's worse. It's like ostracizing homosexuals in and from the church. It's like there's really something supercilious about that. I like that word.
Yeah, I like the word a
I
lot.
learned it. Cause it's like you'll tell somebody they can't be on leadership because they're gay, or they can't serve because they're gay. Yet you have your leaders coming to you about their porn addiction. You know, or like you know your youth pastor's cheated on his wife. You know what I'm saying? Or like even more the hidden stuff, right? Even more so the hidden stuff. But not just the hidden stuff, because there are plenty of situations where in their little cliques in the church leadership, they do talk to each other and, oh, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. Pray for me, brother. Yeah, I'll be praying for you. You know, God will help you through this. And it's like, oh, you're gay? No, you can't.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, what sin is worse?
I know.
Which one is worse? You abandoning your children for the sake of ministry, or this gay person coming and serving on the worship team.
Right.
Like, it's about the heart, you know, and it's, and serving in the church, I think, can be a crutch in and of itself.
Yeah.
And I think it can people can manipulate themselves into thinking that they're free because they serve at church.
Yeah. That was me.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. So it's like, I think we gotta have these difficult conversations
Yeah.
and find out why we believe what we believe. Because, you know, for my life, like, I've always been anti-homosexuality, as far as I don't think it's right. Just like I'm anti-porn, but I was addicted to porn.
Yeah.
Even being anti-porn, I was addicted to porn. So it's like, I don't just want to, like, I know why I'm anti-porn.
Yeah.
I know exactly why I'm anti-porn. But why I'm anti-homosexuality, like, just because a dude tried to fill up on my junk, or I got hit on by a guy. No, like, I'm seeing the effects that it's having, you know, and also having difficult conversations with people that are very pro homosexuality.
Yeah.
Because, and honestly, like, those conversations haven't been all that fruitful.
Yeah.
Because, to be honest, they're as ideologically possessed as those Christians that say all gays are going to hell.
Yeah.
They're just possessed by a whole a polar spirit, you know, a polar opposite spirit. And so, I mean, you could fall off on either side, you know. But I think that as Christians, we need to approach this differently. And as far as my behavior, like, I've been around, I've had the opportunity to be around some gay people in the church, and it's just like, it's awkward navigating that, you know. And it's like, how do you ask certain questions? Are we allowed to ask certain questions? Like, what? There's no handbook for this, you know.
No, there isn't.
But we got to be uncomfortable sometimes. And if we're going to, the world is accepting them.
Yeah.
The world's accepting them.
It's accepting a whole lot of evil.
Yeah.
It's not just that. It's everything in the entertainment, all this stuff coming out about human trafficking in Hollywood, and
Oh yeah.
how it's all tied in together. And it's just, it's
With
just,
pedophilia.
yeah, it's
And
these people
witchcraft.
are showing you what they're about.
Yeah.
And people are just like, no, you're just looking at it that way because blah, 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 blah. No. Like, and this is why I love sharing my testimony, because I was headed down a dark path. Like, there's times I look back and I'm like, I don't know how I'm still alive. And it's the fact that the Lord brought me out of such darkness. Like, if people sat down and talked to me and allowed me to share my story, like, that's all the proof you need. Like, what do you mean? I could have been an alcoholic. Like, that was cut off of me. There's just so many other things that could have happened, and the Lord took me out of that. And, like, I know people are like, no, he's he's too big or he doesn't care about our little problem. No, he does. Like, that's legit. All that he wants from us is to want a relationship with him. And once you have that, you learn how to, like, the things that used to please you no longer please you. Like, you don't find any happiness. And that's really what I got to. I was so depressed and just unhappy with life. And the Lord set me free from all of that. Like, it's day and night difference. I'm not the same person I used to be. Like, this person that I'm talking about, I'm here in the flesh, but like who I was on the inside, I'm not the same person. I don't desire the same things. I don't think about the same things. It's all different. All of it. And it was really because I came into a place where people didn't judge me for me sharing my testimony and saying, hey, this is who I used to be. They loved me through that. And that's made the biggest difference. And that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, because I just want to help people. I know there's a bunch of people out there who are, they're just, it's difficult. It's difficult to see. I still have friends who are gay, and like, I'll talk to them and they'll tell me, and I'm just like, oh, it breaks my heart, because it's like, you don't have to live through this. You can have a better life. But it's people want what they want. You can't help people who don't want to be helped. And if you don't see a problem with being homosexual or bisexual or whatever, then you might want to talk to the Lord about that and check your relationship with him, because I mean, he's the main. This is what everything is about. It's the Lord. It's not about us.
Yeah, definitely that. And you said something that I've been wrestling with this a little bit, because I'm very logical, and I like to understand things. And you said I share my testimony, and that's all the proof you need, right? But for all I know, you could be lying to me about all this. Not that I think you are.
Right.
But just for the sake of exploring this idea, you could be lying and putting up a front to try to convince yourself that you're free from all that, right? And I know it's laughable, right? But it's like, somebody can think that so that they don't have to contend with what you're saying, right? So they could disregard what you're saying as, well, this isn't real proof. And I keep thinking about this, in different areas. It's like, if somebody really doesn't believe that there is a God, and that therefore there is a higher power that they are beholden to, that after they die, that there will be a judgment, and that they will need to give account for the life that they lived. If they don't believe that, if it's like, I am the product of evolution, there is no reason that I exist. There's no purpose for my existence. So really, I can choose what I want out of this life.
Right.
And after I die, it's just going to be blackness, non-existence. It's like, I want something that I can present to a person that thinks that way, that is still open, right? Because I know there's going to be people that they want to believe that, and maybe they don't believe it, and they want to, but they repeat it because they want to so much, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they tell people that they believe. Just like people say they believe in God, but they don't actually believe in God. They think they're their own God.
Yeah.
But they like the ideology, the religious ideology. So I try to explore, what kind of reasonable pathway can I take logically that will help somebody to show them proof, And what, there might be one, and if there is one, help me out, people. But what I've come back to is that human logic is limited, and you can't cast pearls before swine. And I think there is something fundamental about the truth that it is hidden in certain ways, and only to be revealed to those who will humble themselves to it.
Yes.
I could jump in if you.
Yes.
And I appreciate that, Zach. The thing I would add in, and it once again, and just like you said, there's no way to really convince people of what they want to believe. If they want to believe, that's what they're going to believe, no matter what. But we do have a court system that's set up on witnesses, and so I can go on record being as her husband, and the person who knew her for well over a year, and observed her behavior after deliverance, and being a person who was a Christian, going to church, believing in God, believing, in the scripture. And I personally, for a time, was the same place of the people you're talking about. I want proof. I don't really believe it. She's just convincing herself, she's delivered, but she still needs to be careful because she's, still bi on the inside, kind of thing. Like, I was that guy. And having observed, like, all I could do ultimately was see the proof of her behavior. Like, I never saw her like take a weird look at a girl, a different kind of look. Everybody knows what that look looks like. I never saw her go and act any way that was outside of what she claimed was the actual truth. And I'm a very observant person. I don't know if you know that. Like, you can ask Emma. Like, I notice things. I pay attention. And so, like, for me to actually come to that place, like, took literally talking to other gay people that came out of that lifestyle. Shout out to Elizabeth Wanning in California and her ministry. I thankfully had an interaction with believers who literally do ministry on this topic exclusively. And her story is amazing. You should look it up. But a woman who was an actively gay person in ministry, that came to the conclusion, through miraculous process, that she is no longer gay and she was in love with a man, and came out of that lifestyle, dealt with all the shame, and got married. That it's possible. And I had to talk to them and some of her interns, and actually realize that I was heading down the pathway of ruining my relationship with Emma because of not believing. And then I just had to really look at the scripture, and the scripture says, he who sets free is free indeed. And I realized that I didn't believe that scripture in its fullness. If you believe the scripture and you say you're a Christian, then you have to believe, just trust the word that says he who is set free is free indeed. And he or she, it's a neutral term. Let's not get caught up on that. If you're free, you're free. If Jesus set you free, you are free indeed. And I just want to go on record and say, I was that guy, and I am now free from that lie that people can't or won't. Emma is no longer bi. She has no same-sex attraction. And I love her and she is my wife.
I love you too, babe. You're so sweet.
That is sweet, but y'all are married. Y'all could be in collusion.
No, honestly, I mean, I there's this one story that always comes to mind. And again, this is my experience, but because I grew up knowing the Lord and going to church and all that, regardless of if I was living a good Christian life, like not doing bad things and having a legit relationship with God, that's like totally different than, and he's still there. Even when I wasn't close to him, he was still there.
Yeah.
And so there was this one time where my mom was having a birthday party and I had managed to get, now when I was with that chick, the first one, she would always take my car. So I actually stopped going to see my family a lot. And so they knew something was going on, but nobody knew what. So long story short, we were at my mom's birthday party and my brother, he's pretty prophetic. He doesn't really believe in that part of the Bible, that people can function in these things. But
yeah, he operates in it.
Yeah. And so we were sitting outside and he had his sunglasses on and he starts shaking his leg. And that's when I know like something's up. And he was just sitting there. He was like, so how you been? I'm like, I'm all right. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. And so he's like sitting there and he just gets, I can tell he's crying. My brother's crying. He had sunglasses on. I was the only one that could see it. He gets up from the table and walks inside. And my sister has like these pillars in her house. And as soon as I shut the door behind, because I followed my brother in and I shut the door, my brother spoke in a voice I had never heard. And he said, Emma, what are you doing to him? You're hurting him. And he like leaned up against one of these pillars in the most dramatic way. But I knew that was not my brother. That was literally like the Lord speaking through my brother and being like, because at that time I was already on that fence of like, I don't want to live this lifestyle anymore. And so after that, like I had nothing to say. When that whole thing happened with my brother, I just know I grabbed my keys and I left because I got emotional. Because I could see him and like how he was being. Mind you, I've never told my brother any of it. And so like for that to have happened, I knew that was the Lord like calling to me and being like, hey, no matter what you did, I'm still here. And I just want you back. And like that, I'll never forget that ever because I just remember just feeling the presence of the Lord through like my brother. Like he used him that day. So as far as proof, I can't, on paper, all I can do is write, this was my history or I was bi or whatever. The proof is my life now and how I choose to live it. Like I have an amazing husband who I mean, I never thought that I would have a man like Jason. I literally, before I met him, I was like, there's no man out there who's, loves God and wants to live his life for Christ. There's no man out there that's like that. And God heard it and was like, I'll show you. And that very next weekend, I meet Jason. And it's like, bet. And I know the enemy was mad about that day. Like he had been trying to attack our relationship before it even started.
Yeah. He's a really cool guy.
Yeah, he is.
Thanks.
I'm not just saying that here.
Yeah, I mean, I trust this man more than I've trusted anybody in my life.
Shoot, if I was into guys,
you can't have him.
No, you're right. It was a joke.
Yes, I know. Okay. I know that.
So this has been really awesome. Yeah. Really awesome. And I feel like I could keep talking, asking questions. And
yeah. Well, good thing you know me. You can do that anytime.
Yes. It's getting late though, and I wanted to bring up something. Okay. You guys are going to Africa.
Yes, Africa.
When?
I'm excited. So we should be funded before May, because we would be leaving the beginning of May. So technically, there's a deadline coming up in 2 days that we're not really close to. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Africa came to me a long time ago, and I was like, why me, Lord? Like, why would you have me do it? I'm sure there's a bunch of other people. And he's like, Emma, it's your testimony. And so it just kind of kept growing on me. And then when I met Jason, like, I was going to go, even though we were just dating, I was going to go to Africa, but I never got funded. And so, like, thinking now, I'm like, there's no way I could have been away from Jason for 3 months. And so things happened, and Jason's coming with me now.
Wow.
So we have a little more money to raise. I do believe that the Lord's going to do it. He's told me already. Again, he'll tell us that he's going to do things, but we just never know when. So we just have to trust in the process.
Yeah, that's true. That is exactly right. So you're going through overland missions.
Mm-hmm.
Overland missions.
Yes.
Well, let's see here. You can, everybody out there, if you want to help them get to Africa, you can go to overlandmissions.com. And let's see here. You would just go over to the give. And then what do? You put your...
So it should come up with like the amount that you're wanting to give. And then it'll, ask you all the information. And then at the very bottom, I think there's like a memo line. You would just put either mine or Jason's name.
Okay. So why is it?
So there's been something up with the website.
Oh, they got to get that right.
I know, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if you go here and it just keeps spinning like this, just find them on Facebook and Facebook fam. You feel me?
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, definitely you guys are going to have an awesome experience. I went on a mission trip and it was very, very impactful. I've been to Africa too.
Oh, word.
Oh, nice.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, haha.
You got it. You got it.
I believed you.
Oh, yeah, I get it now.
Oh, no, I went to the Bahamas. No, on my mission trip, I went to the Bahamas.
That's awesome.
And they'd be like, that's not a mission trip. If you've been to the Bahamas, you would know.
There's parts that they're
it's
pretty rough.
It is very rough. If you've been there on a cruise, then you don't know.
Didn't see that part.
Understand.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, it's paradigm shifting for sure.
Yep.
So I know it's gonna be a great experience for y'all, and I'm excited for y'all.
Thank you.
And so I'll put your names there in the description of the video, so that when they type it in, or they can find you on Facebook and Facebook.
Yeah.
page.
Yeah, for sure.
If you feel led, we're not over here like doing this whole video to fundraise. This is literally, I've been wanting to have this kind of conversation. She was open and willing to have this conversation, and they happen to be going to Africa, and I happen to want to be like, hey, we'll put it up on the screen. So
yeah, I mean, we're appreciative of anybody that is willing to give. We're not, like begging people for money. I know the Lord, if the Lord called us to it, he's going to make it happen.
that's right. If it's God's will, it's God's bill.
That's right. That's right. It's too heavy for us to carry, so he's going to do the heavy lifting.
Well, look, there's so much more to say. Oh,
Yeah, I was gonna just
speaking of,
just real quick though, like I've changed my paradigm on giving. Like to me now, it's if you support who we are, what we're about, and honestly want to share in the blessing of the ministry that we're going to be doing. This isn't some, even charity organization. This is a literal like ministry that goes into the bush and reaches the unreached So if you care about people in Africa that have never spoken to someone from another country, from the U.S., or had a limited contact, if you believe in that the scripture and the prophecy that says once all nations have heard the gospel, then Christ will return. That's what this ministry organization's about. Overland Mission's about. And honestly, that's what giving is about, going and sharing in the ministry of individuals that you trust, believe in, and support, what they're about.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think that would be a really great topic to have a podcast on, is giving, tithing, offering, and giving.
Yeah.
Because I think it's been I'm starting to lose brain power here.
No, you're good. I
Man,
get it.
the church, I wouldn't say the church, speaking of the biblical church, the ecclesia, but the modern day American church, and probably churches in other countries, the whole system of their receiving money is so messed up and twisted. But that's for another time. We gotta go. We gotta hit the hay.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, it
and
was fun.
speaking with me. Was it fun?
Yeah.
It was good.
I
I'm glad it was
mean,
fun.
I'm not saying like, oh, party.
I didn't almost cry.
Yeah, no, it's good to talk about this with people who are curious for, like, I don't want to say positive reasons, but they're not trying to find out all of this stuff to like make somebody look bad or whatever. Like, just having an open conversation is pretty legit.
Yeah, I am curious. I'm curious in multiple ways, one or two ways, like bi-curious.
Yeah.
Don't.
I'm sorry.
I see what you did there.
I'm sorry. I need to go to bed.
Yeah.
You do.
And Jason, I appreciate you, man,
For sure, though.
so very much.
Yeah, for sure.
Say goodbye to the people.
Bye, people. It's been real.
All right, guys. Listen, we'll be back next week, probably. Maybe not, but probably next week with episode 11.
Yep.
We got two more, and then I'm outie. And look, we'll come back for season 3. Give me a few months off. I won't be gone completely. I'm gonna drop some videos, indefinitely. So, but as far as the weekly show, I gotta take a break after the season's up. So, love you guys. We'll see you next time. And you know what? Be real. Think honestly. Don't lie to yourself. Think. Open up your mind. If you're hit with ideas that you don't agree with, consider them, because maybe you're wrong. And you know what? Think freely, speak freely, and please, I'm out.